gentlemen, you welcome your host for the evening. It's me. Thank you very much. I'm quite nervous, actually. I haven't been so nervous since I found myself in the gents with Shaking Stevens. But I read a statistic in a paper the other day that said 90% of ladies liked Shaking Stevens. And 10% thought he was old enough to shake himself. But anyway, oh dear. Mind you, I was fairly nervous. I found myself sharing a flat with Alice Cooper. That was... the lady... I was very... reassuring. As I walked on, a lady over here on the left said, "Doesn't he remind you of Pierce Brosnan?" Just sitting over there, sipping the metal polish. Ah, dear. Well, lovely. I hope you like the suit. Yes? Well, very kind. No, normally I wear tartan trousers and sometimes a tartan jacket, but I've got to be careful, you know. If I wear too much tartan, I tend to look like a thermos flask. So I've got to be very careful. And this is Anne. My wife bought me this in the sales at Mothercare. And you can laugh. When do you last buy a new suit and get a free Snoopy? Oh, dear. I was going to... I mean, isn't it lovely? Isn't this theatre beautiful, eh? Yes, it's so lovely. Are you all sort of from the Richmond area, or you come from... I mean, you're so lucky to have a little jewel like this. I mean, Richmond itself is so lovely, you know. So liberal, you know. Yes, no. I mean, the policemen still walk around in pairs, but they're allowed to hold hands. It's quite nice. And if they accompany you to the station, they do so with a string quartet. It's all very posh. Well, it's been a lovely week, honestly, this week. Very lovely for me, anyway. Well, for a lot of people. Tony Blair left today for a tour of friendly countries, and he's coming back tomorrow. He and Gordon Brown are best of friends. And I bumped into Elvis at the deli counter at Tesco's. And I know you saw in the papers this week that Victoria Beckham met the Queen for the first time the other day. There was a bit of a problem with the curtsy, but of course she is well into her 70s, isn't she? And I also saw in the papers that Anne Robinson was voted the most irritating performer on television. Yes. I haven't got a joke about that. I just feel more people ought to know. Dear. Funnily enough, Anne and I were here in this area not very long ago. We were down at the rather posh hotel up at the top of the Richmond Hill there. We were invited to be honoured guests of the Larder Owners and Drivers Club. Yes. Quite interesting, because the invitation said 4:30 for 8. And the funny thing was that was the very time that week I got my senior citizen's rail card. Yes. Funny thing was, the week before I'd been travelling half fare. Now, and I actually travelled to Richmond today on a senior citizen's super saver, half fare, away day, excursion rate ticket. And after a bit of a debate with the booking clerk, I got my ticket and 13 quid, which was quite nice. Now, I expect you're wondering how... Well, you may not be wondering. None of my business what you are wondering, isn't it? I mean, people often wonder very funny things, don't they? I mean, I wonder if you tried to choke a Smurf, what colour would it go? And I wondered, if a man talks in the forest and no woman hears, is he still wrong? Well, the answer is yes, of course. I wonder, the thing that always puzzles me, why in supermarkets sour cream has a sell-by date. I never understand. But I'll tell you what happened about tonight, how this occurred. Universal, the people who were making this video, rang me up. Well, they didn't actually ring me. They actually sent round Robin Cook. with a set of proposals. And no, I'm not going to. I think we all feel a bit sorry for Robin now. We feel a bit sort of out of it. Don't like to make. I worry about him, to be honest. I mean, what's going to happen to him when his looks finally go? I can make jokes about Robin because we were at school together. That's true. St. Pansy's Primary. I was captain of the school embroidery team, and used to pay protection money to the brownies. And we had a sex education teacher who was so shy he used to lock himself in the cupboard and shout through the keyhole. Most people's early sex education about the birds and the bees, wasn't it? Mine was a disembodied voice shouting, "Some do, some don't," and "Hello, sailor." Now, but anyway, Robin Cook, I would make this joke about Robin because he was in the business, he was in our business, he was in management years ago before he went into politics. He used to manage the 5 Nolan sisters. Now, sadly, can only manage 2 or 3. But so I got this invitation and to do the show tonight. Funnily enough, I had a little message tonight saying, best wishes for your show at the Richmond Theatre. If you're not the funnest comedian in the world, I'm a Dutchman. Signed, Hans van Gelder of Amsterdam. That was and our best wishes, this is what I say, best wishes for your show. Hope you're not going to contain the usual references to your diminutive stature and lack of inches. Come off, you're no different from the rest of us. Danny DeVito. No, because I've just come back. I've just come back from America, making a film over there with Danny DeVito, John Cleese, Danny DeVito, Jamie Lee Curtis, Dolly Parton, all about the gay mafia. It's quite interesting, really, because if you upset them, they come round and criticize your curtains. In the film, I played the rather demanding role of Dolly Parton's chiropodist. So I was working in the dark to a large extent. And the end of filming, we had a lovely little party with a trio and everything, lovely food and little nibbles. And I managed to have a dance with Dolly. And not only could I not see where I was going, I couldn't hear the band. But it was nevertheless lovely. Don, I've just realised I haven't told them you're wonderful, but Don Hunt, our musical director and piano player, and Paul on the double bass. But the most point was that Don yesterday became the father of a bouncing baby boy. Yes, lovely, wasn't it? Very well done, Don. Very well. When his wife finds out, she'll murder him. But we'll be very... No. Why don't you go and have a little sip, wet the baby's head and everything, and I will call it when we get round to it. Because normally, to be truthful, not normally, we occasionally have a trumpet player making a trio and does little sort of jazz riffs. But Don put an advertisement in the local paper, and 2 fellas turned up for this job. First fellow's very, very smart with digital cufflinks and Bristol cream in his hair, imitation crocodile case, and opened it up and brought out this beautiful, shiny trumpet, and he started to play it. He was absolutely diabolical. And the second fellow arrived, the dirty old raincoat on, tied at the waist with string, holes in his shoes, greasy old felt hat, 5-day growth of beard, and under his arm this dirty old parcel wrapped in green old dirty newspaper tied with greasy old string. And he undid this parcel. He brought out this battered old trumpet. And he was a bloody sight worse than the other fellow. Oh, dear. One of the lovely things about this business is, of course, we find ourselves all over the place. I'm here tonight, I was here last night, next week I'm somewhere. Today I came a bit early, I went and had a few holes, golf. Played 5, fell down 4. And I was on the first tee with my big golfing cap, and the greenkeeper rushed out and said, "These bloody mushrooms are early this year." Because people often say to me, "How did you start?" They say, "What made you decide to become a comedian?" Which is what I am. I always mention that, just in case there might be some foreign visitors, who might think I'm a fridge magnet. How I started? Well, the first job I ever had in this business, first off, I toured the country with a naked ladies' choir, bringing music to millions and pleasure to the deaf. And then I was in the black and white minstrel show for a while, too, singing all those lovely minstrel songs, you know. Raquel Welch, I love your left, doo-da, doo-da. I sit and think of Raquel's left, doo-da, all the day. Is it bigger than the right? It's very hard to say, but that's the one that'll get my vote on National Doo-da Day. Originally... I used to sing Scottish songs too. Travelling home on a through train to wear, cash in my pocket and plenty to spare. Wearing a school cap and travelling half fare. I love my height, it suits me. In spite of those big brawny lads all around, the ladies adore me, at least so I've found. 'Cause I've got a sporran that's near of the ground. It's all very clear. Oh dear. No, Scottish. Because, of course, I went to school in there. I was educated in Scotland, and I'm still waiting for my exam results. But originally, my mother wanted me to be a classical ballet dancer. That was the original idea. And I went to this Marjorie Middleton School in Edinburgh, you know. And in those days, you got your elementary intermediate. When you got your intermediate, they gave you your first pair of tights. I'm sorry, you're making up your own jokes down there. And that's when I got a bit nervous. So I decided to take the tights home and try them on in the privacy of my house, you know. I put my leg on the mantelpiece and the dog went for me. He did love the little chunky bits. Now, a week later, I got my confidence back. And I put the tights on again, walked into the rehearsal room. Somebody said, "That's a funny place to hide your holiday money." I never went back to the dance. I got a job instead, playing the piano in a pub. And not straight away, because in our business, I mean, it's still the same. So many people unemployed all the time. You have to do all sorts of odd jobs. I mean, I was a lumberjack in a mushroom farm for a while. Shouting, "Fungi!" I was in the mounted police, too. I got the sack. I kept slipping off the Alsatian. It was just too embarrassing. But this pub, this was a funny old pub because it hadn't always been a pub. It used to be a public convenience. A lot of people came in there, not realizing it had changed hands. And things we saw coming in the front door. Anyway, the public used to give me 30 bob to sit at the piano for a couple of hours, you see. The customers would give me £2 to sit somewhere else. Not a lot of money by today's standards, but anyway. This night, it was a funny thing. I was talking about the odd jobs I did. I got a job once, I went for a casual job, on a building site. Labour, the foreman said to me, "Can you make a cup of tea?" He said to me. I said, "Yes." He said, "Can you drive a forklift truck?" I said, "Christ, how big's the kettle?" This pub was a wonderful old pub because each night they had different attractions. They had one night, I remember, Monday night was jazz night, Tuesday night was folk music night, and Wednesday, I remember one folk music night, we had an Irish folk trio, asked to do something typically Irish. They went out and dug up the car park. The leader of the group was asked to fill in a questionnaire. He went out and hit the doorman. But I mustn't do Irish jokes. I've got to balance it up because we had a Scottish fiddle orchestra there one night. They were asked to do something typically Scottish. They went out and were sick of the telephone box. The most popular night of the week was actually Thursday. That was competition night. You know, we used to have. Remember one night we had a competition for unusual pets. Owing to the lack of entries, one fellow won it with a tin of salmon. Down with a tin of John West. Then we had the hokey cokey competition, and the winner was disqualified. Putting it in when he should have been shaking it all about. That's the trouble with orgies, really, isn't it? You never know who to thank when you're leaving, really. What am I talking about? But you see the big article in the weekend about all the sex trade in this country? Goodness me, I was just browsing through. There's got a girl saying that she had met this man from Eastern Europe who gave her $3,000, and all he wanted to do was whack her with a cane. Her friend said, "How long did he whack you for?" She said, "Well, till he gave him the $3,000 back." No. But anyway, I tell you, this night I was playing this in this pub, playing away, you see, and I said the publican used to give me 30 bob, didn't I? But I've forgotten where I was for a minute there. I've forgotten how much. Because times are hard in those days, you know. Times are very, very hard. I mean, you know, I used to sit at home and make plans to ambush Meals on Wheels. Remember one Sunday, my mother served me a kipper and 2 Brussels sprouts. I thought she'd killed a mermaid. Anyway, this night, I'm back on track. This night, I'm sitting away, playing away in the pub, you see, and suddenly this fellow jumps up and he shouts. He said, "That piano playing is diabolical," he said. "I got a cat at home that plays better than that." Well, it all went quiet. Not as quiet as this. It went quiet. And my old mother, who was sitting quietly in the corner, taking the back off a fruit machine, She jumped to her foot. I forgot to tell you, she had a wooden leg. She said, "Sir, are you mad? Have you been drinking the bitter?" With that, this fellow flew out the pub. He came back with the cat, sat the cat down on the piano stool, and it started to play the piano, the cat. Not wonderful, you know. It's a little bit weak with the left paw. And couldn't quite reach the pedals. But who can? Swing my leg. The fellow said to the public, "I'll tell you something else. The cat not only played that music," he said, "but it composed it." The public said, "Well, that is fantastic," he said. "You ought to have it orchestrated." The cat was up off that stool and out of that. Oh dear, I told I did that little Irish joke, didn't I? I do because I get a bit. Politically correct, that's the great thing now. I mean, it's nonsense, really. I mean, I'll tell you, not very long ago, I was on a trekking holiday in the Himalayas. And you can see me, can't you, trekking. And we're in this big party, and the ladies were leading, you know, in case of snakes. And somebody shouted, "Look out, man-eating tiger." And this lady said, "Don't you mean woman-eating tiger?" And this rather correctly said, "Don't you mean person-eating tiger?" By the time they'd finished the argument, the tiger had eaten all 3 of them. So that would but I've got an Irish friend. Because you don't, there can be cruel Irish jokes, like the Irishman going to the motor show and spending the day walking around the car park. That type of thing. I wouldn't, no. And a friend of mine, an Irish chap, opened a fish and chip shop near us in Croydon, and the customer walked in and said, "Fish and chips twice." If I said, "I heard you the first time." But this is a story about a dear friend of mine Irish friend of mine, who bought this piece of land 4 miles long and 3 inches wide. And he was hoping to grow spaghetti on it. But it didn't work out. So he's in the pub this night and he's going to do a deal. He's going to get rid of the land to some. And there's 3 fellas. There's an American, there's an Englishman, there's a Scotsman there. And he said to them, it's always an American, an Englishman, and a Scotsman. And he said, "I have this piece of land," he said, "and I am prepared to give it away to anyone who can complete the conundrum." By the way, I don't do very good Irish accent. I do a very good Pakistani one, fellas. But this story is complicated enough already. Introduction of an Irish-speaking Pakistani. He said, "I have this piece of land." He said, "I am prepared to give it away." He said, "to anyone who can do the following conundrum." He said, "There's a word missing. Old MacDonald had a..." Now you have to fill in that word and spell it. Now, there's an American there, you see. There's an Englishman, there's a Scotsman. The American said, "I just have an idea. This MacDonald man, maybe George MacDonald III with oil wells in Texas," he said, "I think he would say, old MacDonald had a ranch. R-A-N-C-H. Oh, the Irishman said, "That's wrong. No. And the Scotsman said, I ken well who this old MacDonald is. Well, he's the gillie to the Duke of Roxburgh, this old MacDonald, he said. And I would think he would possibly say, old MacDonald had a shoot. S-H-O-O-T. And they said, no, wait a minute, I think this MacDonald chappie was at school. I think he was in my house at Eton, he said, and I think he had a rather posh property somewhere in Staffordshire, and I think he would say, old MacDonald had an estate. E-S-T-A-T-E. No, you're all wrong, he said. It's old MacDonald had a farm. E-I-E-I-O. Now oh dear! I mentioned that I'd come back, not long come back from America with this film and everything, and I quite interesting because I flew back Qantas Airlines, which was quite nice. All the trouble with British Airways, isn't it dreadful? You can't trust old British Airways taking great care of you and everything. But I came back Qantas. It was quite only interesting because I'd never had ostrich to eat. It was ostrich to eat in the plane, you know. They give you 16 legs and a postman's bag for the giblets. And I didn't. I had spotted dick. That way you get 3 seats to yourself. But we were coming into. I said to myself, I never know how they catch these ostriches. How do you catch an ostrich? How do you farm and catch? Well, the fellow said to me, I'll tell you what they do in Australia. The ostrich is walking about the field like they do. Well, you know. That's not very like an ostrich, but you know what I mean. With its bum in the air and its mind in neutral. And then the farmer creeps up behind it and goes, boo, like that. The ostrich sticks its head in the sand. By the time he brings it out, the rest of him's on the back of a lorry. That's how. But we're coming into land at Heathrow Airport. And the captain came on. He said, "There's your captain speaking." He said, "In 5 minutes' time, we should be landing at London Heathrow Airport. Hope you've enjoyed your flight. We'll fly with us again," etc., etc., etc. You see, and forgetting to switch off. Well, the pilot didn't say, etc., etc., etc. No, I just said that. You don't want to hear everything the pilot said. I thought I'd just joke about just that. But I thought you might think the stories about somebody who kept saying, etc., etc. It's nothing to do with that. He said let's land this here, etc. And forgetting to switch off the intercom, he turned to the co-pilot. He said, "The first thing I'm going to do when I land this aeroplane is I'm going to have a pint of ice-cold lager," he said, "and I'm going to make mad, passionate love to the new air hostess." Well, the whole plane including the air hostess, whose eyes lit up. And no, they didn't. Well, they did, but I promised not to tell you. Anyway, she was very concerned he would say anything else. So she rushed up the gangway to warn him. It was switched on. In her haste, fell over an old lady's hand baggage and went sprawling up the gangway. The old lady leaned over. She said, "I shouldn't rush you. You're going to have a pint of lager first, darling." You know, oh, my God. I'm going to have a wee sip. I had a friend... very handy. I had a friend who once had an ambition to cross the Atlantic on a plank, but he couldn't find one long enough. And he was on this plane, this friend of mine crossing, and they started showing the film, and it was one he'd seen before, and he was so disgusted he got up and walked out. and he finds himself on this desert island. I've been on this desert island for 8 weeks, all on his own, apart from his 8 gramophone records. And he's sitting there on the beach this day, waiting for the tide to come in and fill in his little moat. And this apparition comes out of the sea towards him. Beautiful girl. That sort of thing. And she shook her hair out like that. You know how they go. One of my eyes has gone loose. Wait a minute. She said, "What are you doing here, you naughty little man?" He said, "I've been cast adrift here. I've been here for 8 weeks, all on my own." He said, "I'm just sitting here waiting." She said, "How long since you have a cigarette?" He said, "I haven't had a cigarette for 8 weeks," he said. "Thinking of giving it up." starting tomorrow. So she unzipped the pocket of the sweatsuit, brought out a packet of cigarettes. Then she said, "How long since you have a drinky winky?" He said, "Well, the same." Undid the zip there, brought out a little flask of whiskey. Then she began to undo the middle zip. He said, "How long since you played around?" He said, my God, don't tell me you've got a set of golf clubs in there. Oh, dear. I can joke about golf. I'm going to have to give up golf, I think, because it got a nasty moment the other night. Home, 11:45, and suddenly went mad. She said, shout. She said, golf, 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 she said. All you ever think about is bloody golf. Well, it frightened the life out of me. You don't expect to meet anybody on the 14th green at that time of night, do you? Oh, dear, I usually go and... I played the other day at Sunningdale, which is very lovely. 2 courses, not cheap. A bit like lunch with Ken Dodd. The best I've ever done at Sunningdale on the old course is 112. But I might have played 5 holes on the new course as well, so at the same time. Ended up in a big sand bunker full of children. I think I might have strayed into a municipal play area, but anyway. But normally on a Sunday, I used to play with this friend of mine, Morris, and I'd go and call for Morris on Sunday morning, knock on his door, and his wife came to the door and said, have you come for Morris? I said, yes. She said, he's dead. I said, he's not. She said, he is. I said, he's not. She said, he is. I said, he's not. She said, he is. It's a silly conversation, really, because she's a nice woman and she wouldn't lie about a thing like that. I said, goodness me, this is a terrible shock. She said, well, how do you suppose Morris felt? I said, what happened? She said, well, last Wednesday he went down the garden to cut a cabbage for lunch, and bonk, he'd gone. Well, dear me. I said, what did you do? She said, well, I had to open a tin of peas. That was it. And the golf club very kindly agreed to put his ashes in an urn, on the mantelpiece, really, in memory of him. 1 or 2 of the members of the club, not realizing the significance, have been flicking the cigarette ash in Morris's urn. The other day, the secretary picked it up and said, he's been dead a few weeks. I think he's putting on a bit of weight, he said. Oh, it was funny, really, because he was into psychic phenomena in his day, this Morris, and he had when you suddenly hear from someone who died 20 years ago, a bit like second-class mail, and he heard that in the Highlands of Scotland there was this expert in psychic phenomenon, clairvoyance, looking into the future, you see. So he went up to visit him, and he's walking, found this bungalow in the Highlands, way up in the Highlands of Heather, and he knocks on the door. This lady comes to the door. He said, I understand there's an expert who lives in clairvoyance, seeing into the future, foretelling what's going to happen each moment of the day, and he lives here? She said, that's right, yes. Is he expecting you? She said, no. So he said, no. And so this old boy came out. He said, oh, yes. He said, I'm an expert. For £500, he says. £500. He said, I could teach you how to look into the future so you know what's going to happen anytime. £500, I'll do it. Show you the tricks of the trade, no problem. I don't know where he's from. God knows where this fella is. Broth, I think. So he takes him into the garden. Takes him into the garden, and he brings the hose out of the garden shed, and he attaches it to the tap on the wall. And he said, no. He said, I want you to peer into that hose, into the end of the hose, and really concentrate. Look down at the... I said, I don't see what this has got to do with seeing... He said, trust me. You look down the hose. He said, look down the hose. Are you concentrating? Really concentrating? He said, yes, really concentrating. I think you can get he's concentrating. Anyway, and he rushes down the corner, turns the tap on. All the water, all over the fellow's suit, his face. He rushed over and said, I damn well knew you were going to do that. The old boy says, there you are. You see, we're halfway there already. Oh, dear. I won't mention the left-handed bit, I don't think. I was going to tell you a story about... I was reminded of this story, to be truthful, at a little informal bonfire I threw after my golf lesson the other day. I don't know if you ever tried to burn clubs, but the woods go very well, but the irons tend to hang around for a while. But this is about a fellow who went on a luxury cruise and... It isn't the one about the Irishman who was on a luxury cruise, found a lifeboat and broke it up to make a raft. It isn't that one. No. I wish it was that one, because that one is a damn sight funnier than the one I'm going to tell you. But anyway, he said, this fellow, nor is it the one about the girl who stowed away on the vessel. This young girl stowed away, and she was on the vessel for 4 days before she was finally discovered. And she was marched into the captain's cabin. And the captain said, I understand you've been stowed away on this vessel for 4 days. How have you been? She said, well, very kindly, the second officer has been bringing me lovely warm meals, soup, little gin and tonics in the evening, bit of wine here and there, allowing me to use his showering facilities, and really being a little sweetie, she said. And the captain says, anything else? She said, well, I have to be honest, Jess. He has been taking advantage of me. The captain says, taking advantage of you? He said, I'll say he has. This is the Isle of Wight Ferry. But this fellow is on this cruise. I'll tell you what. He's on this cruise, and like they do, they have sort of sports competition between the decks, and he's practicing leapfrog on A deck with the team, getting the leapfrog team together. And he makes a giant leap over a window from Huddersfield, and he goes straight over the edge into the water. The moment he hits the water, he thinks, I'm drowning. Well, you would do, wouldn't you? His whole life flashed in front of his eyes. It wasn't until he got to his affair with Kim Bassinger that he realized he was watching the wrong life. And so he's swimming about on his own. Silly to say that, because if you're fallen in, you are going to be on your own. You're not going to. How kind of you to drop in, drink up, there's plenty here. Anyway, he's swimming about. And he's thinking of his lovely house in the Cotswolds, his friends at the Polo Club, his sons William and Harry. And he's thinking of the wrong life again, to be honest, but he notices in the distance a desert island, palm trees waving, golden sand, and he decides to swim for this island. And he swims, and he swims, and he swims. And eventually, he reaches the island. So exhausted, he falls fast asleep. When he wakens up, there, standing over him, is a great big native chief. Huge. He said, I'm terribly sorry. He said, I didn't realize this is private property. I should be off here in no time. And the native chief said, there's absolutely no problem at all. He said, can we offer you a little hospitality, perhaps a little curried octopus, or perhaps some nice gin with some fresh limes, or perhaps even one of our... The fellow said, excuse me, no, very, very sweet, all these invitations, very sweet. What puzzles me is, where did you learn to speak such beautiful English? The native chief says, well, I'm going to... Absolutely frank, we picked it up off the shortwave radio, I'm afraid. Here's a wee song that kind of fits this. Now, since my girlfriend Sal met Miss Elsie Wolfe, leading decorator of the nation, it's filled that girl's mind simply full of ideas on interior decoration. For instance, she assumes that the colors of our rooms are the most important factors in our lives. And if a lot of bedrooms were pink instead of red rooms, there might be many more contented wives. And so she's put all color from her sight, and everything she owns is black and white. She got a black and white coat, a black and white hat, a black and white doggy, and a black and white cat. She's gone so far that she started to look through the daily advertisements for a black and white cook. She's got a black and white shack with a new Cadillac with a black and white design. Oh, she thinks black and white, she even drinks black and white, that black and white baby of mine. She got in a fight with a black and white guy, gave him black and white teeth and a black and white eye. So they rushed her off just as quick as a wink in a black and white Mariah to a black and white clink. She said, why, sorry, my loves, and with a black and white gloves made a most disgusting sight. Oh, how her family weep, because she's the black and white sheep, a black and white baby of mine. Can't whistle with false teeth. She got a black and white coat and a black and white hat with a black and white design. Oh, she thinks black and white, she even drinks black and white, that black and white baby of mine. Oh yeah, that black and white baby of mine. And that's jazz. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll have a wee sip of this. Oh, there's so much in the magazines these days, aren't they, about food and eating? And because we are quite keen on food at home, I'll be honest, Anne and I. Every night at 7 o'clock, the dinner gong rings. And it's not so much a dinner gong, it's more of a smoke alarm. And specialises in cordon noir. She thinks a microwave is how small people greet each other, you know. But I mean, how many of you watched the Gordon Ramsay with the Hell's Kitchen? That was something, wasn't it, dear me? Funnily enough, he's produced and I took it out of the magazine the other. He's produced a recipe book called Obscene Cuisine. Yes, and you got this recipe, a bit of it here. So, break 6 eggs into a bowl and give them a good bollocking. That's a nice little recipe. It says, now it's time to prepare the vegetables. First of all, shag the cabbage and rant at the onions and garlic. Then threaten the herbs. Place the herbs on a chopping board and bruise them. You may like to use your fists for this, but I prefer to do it with my forehead. What kind of recipe is this? And it says, far more authentic. For a more authentic sacre bleu dish, do not use oven gloves when taking the casserole out of the oven for the last time. That is how it has been traditionally served in the little town in the Languedoc where it originated. That town is called fucking hell. I'm glad you like that bit. Then it says, you want to prepare this, after just one mouthful, all your guests are bound to declare, this is absolute shite, this is. At this point in the evening, I always like to hit them over the head with a cast iron wanker. Now that is gone. I've got a sweeter recipe than that. I don't mean to be rude, but I'm not in the mood for food. It's lovely, it's tempting, fit for a king, I know. Your cooking's a work of art, but when you're with me, why be so a la carte? Madam, I like your crepe Suzette. I think your crepe Suzette is fabulous. But for the moment, let's forget all about your crepe Suzette. Madam, I like your cheese soufflé. I think your cheese soufflé is fabulous. But when you look at me that way, how can I eat cheese soufflé? I regret to say I'm unable to partake of your table. You'd be more delish, account of my favorite dish. Madam, if I don't touch your pie, it's not because I lost my appetite. I want what you've got plenty of. Madam, I came here for love. I regret to say I'm unable to partake of your table. You'd be more delish, account of my favorite dish. Madam, if I don't touch your pie, it's not because I've lost my appetite. I want what you've got plenty of. Madam, I came here for love. Oh, dear. Thank you very much. It's so sweet. This, you may be wondering for a minute, because sometimes people have said to me, why do you have the chair? I just sometimes sit down over my legs about, but the phone, people say the phone. I said, well, the phone is so that the producer can get in touch with me. It's so important. Any time in the Hello? Yes? Well, I am getting on with it. Yes. Yes, I know. Yeah, I can't speak long. I've got some people here. Do you know that? Yeah. Yes. Yes, okay, then. Right, okay. He's a very nice chap, Colin, very, very sweet. When I arrived at the theatre today, he said, come upstairs and the bar, have a little drink, relax and everything. I walked up there. There he was, standing, chatting to the hat stand. And doesn't see too well. And neither do I, to be honest. I bought them both a drink. But anyway, He said, help. Yes. So I'm going to just, they've been very sweet, and they've left me a cigar, and they've just been very hospitable about the whole thing. And one of the... Hello? Yes? Oh, I didn't think. Oh, all right, okay. One of the nice things about it is that... Phone. Hello? Yes. Oh, yes, certainly, of course. Saving it for John Inman in pantomime. I'm going to have a little drink, just because while it's here. I wouldn't normally. That's it. I wouldn't normally be drinking like this, to be truthful, but I've got a little bit of a cold. Can't get rid of it. I've had it since I was 11. I went to see the doctor the other day with my nose, and well, I didn't actually see him with my nose, obviously. So saw him with my eyes, but I happened to have my nose with me at the time, you know. He said, I'm going to give you a vapor rub. I said, will it clear my chest? He said, it might bloody well clear Richmond Theatre, he said. But he's a lovely doctor. He's more holistic. He's got... Well, this day, I was walking in this day, I bumped into this friend of mine coming out. I said, you look very sad. He said, I've just been diagnosed, he said, a kleptomaniac. Hanging his head in shame, plunging his hands deep into my pockets. I said, what's the doctor said, well, he's given me some tablets. He said, if they don't work, could I get him a CD player? So the doctor, I've gone for this examination, and he said, come in the surgery, he said, take off your clothes, he said. I said, shouldn't we have a cup of coffee first, or a little drink? I'm eventually standing there without any clothes. It's not comfortable, is it, without clothes? And the doctor looked at me and said, oh my God, he said. He said, how long has it been like that? I said, that's as long as it's always been, I'm sorry to tell you. But he's got some worthwhile advice, because he looks after you holistic. He said, your children, for example, say if you can get your children to run 3 miles every morning and 3 miles every evening, by the end of the week, they could be 42 miles away. And he said, if you've got any friends who are getting married, be sure to have a home movie made of the ceremony, because very often years ago I might feeling a bit low, a bit depressed. You run that film. It's like a fairy tale. Particularly if you run it backwards, because that way you end up single. I don't mean that, of course. Gosh, I remember when Anne and I got married, dear me, we couldn't afford a church organ. Had to take our own organ along. The music was all right, but the monkey was a bit of a nuisance. Setting a very bad example to the choir. And then there was a mix-up at the florist's, and eventually Anne walked down the aisle with a floral dartboard made of carnations. And the message which read, goodbye Sid from the lads at the Rose and Crown. Oh dear, oh, it's very nice. Age is a terrible thing as you get older. I don't know why I suddenly thought... Well, I was thinking of the doctor, I suppose, and going for the check all the things. I mean, you know the signs of advancing age. You start liking James' last records. Bend down to tie your shoelaces and think, what else can I do when I'm down here, I wonder? And Anne sent me the other day for milk. We ran out of milk. I went down to Tesco. She said, the fellow said, all we've got left, he said, is long life. I said, how long? He said, it'll see you out, mate. He said, don't do that. And the other day, a lady came round from the Help the Aged with the envelope, the Help the Aged envelope. There was money already in it. You know, I'm beginning to worry. Am I going to be a burden on my family? You bet I am. You know, I thought when the children grew up, they'd fly the coop, you know, went off to seek their fortunes. Now they come back to seek mine. No. I mean, the whole point is there's so much hinting going on. Saying, "Can I have your desk when I what? When you don't need it anymore?" I mean, when I go, there'll be a race between the hearse and the skip. I can tell you that. I mean, I realise you can't take it with you, obviously, but I just wonder if there's any way you can send it in advance. I mean, how much pocket money would you give a 41-year-old? No. But I was going to say, this friend of mine, Amos, poor Amos, talk about getting old, he had tried these half-strength Viagra tablets, dear me. And he was only allowed, sorry, he was, I must watch this because it's so easy to stand here and enjoy yourself. Sip, 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 sip. I did this the other night. Chat, 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 sip, 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 chat, chat, sip, sip, sip. I left the theatre in a disgusting state. I was up a one-way street the wrong way, straight through the lights, right across a roundabout, hit the back of a bus, end up in Woolworth's window. I thought to myself, thank God I'm not in the car. But anyway, this friend of mine with the Viagra, it's a half-strength Viagra, and he was only allowed to make love in the potting shed because he wasn't allowed a permanent erection. Now, that's just... But I tell you what needs watching. This double strength 5-star Viagra that really turns a bleating lamb into a raging bull. Well, I tell you what, it's not been medically tested. It's illegally imported. And it tastes bloody awful, I can tell you. I was going to say, my granddaughter, Tiffany Bianca, she's called Tiffany. She thinks I'm cool, Tiffany Bianca. Well, I am cool, actually. I've had a nipple pierced. And, it was an accident. I was pinning up a Spice Girls poster and I got the staple gun round the wrong way. Oh, God, I screamed so loud. Woke up Lord Falconer. Not the Lord Chancellor. Our cat, we call the cat Lord Falconer, because he lives rent-free in the lap of luxury. He's no bloody use to anyone. And so because apparently at school that day they've been doing drugs. I don't mean taking them. I mean talking about the day. Mind you, but the look of the graffiti on the wall, they very well might have been. I'm sure Mr. Griffin is not a Fukang Wonka. Anyway, but we have... I've got a daughter, a third daughter, in case I get into trouble. Third daughter. No, daughter came home the other night with someone from another planet, this fellow. This fellow he was obviously trying to take on human form, that failed. He was half man, half sofa. And she said to me, his name is Peter, and he's training to be a doctor. He didn't look bright enough to be a patient, to me, to be honest. We said, tell him we are earthlings, and we mean him no harm, we said. Now take him back to where you found him, and try not to get any on your shoes. So that was the end of that. Because we got a friend, and a friend of Anne's actually, who's had a bit of a complex all her life about her figure, her shape, her bosom, and she was. I'm not very good at telling these sort of stories with my repressed Scottish upbringing, Because when we used to play doctors and nurses in my garden shed, I was always the one they sent for more bandages. Time I got back, Linda Markspax was up and about and fully recovered. But anyway, this girl, and they were playing hopscotch. For years I thought sex was something you did on one leg. And every time I tried it behind the Odeon, I fell over. But anyway, this little girl had been worried about her bosom. She went to see this specialist in Harley Street. He said, well, there's quite an awfully neat procedure that's come from America. He said that we put airbags in each bosom. He wore his glasses always like that. Had a theory that saved wear and tear on the lens. And he said, we put a wee airbag, he said, in each bosom. And there's a wee valve under your arm. And he said, you just pump up your bosom to the results, and you'll find out do you well good. Your confidence will be regained. You'll be swishing about. She said, "I'll have it done." So we had it done. And she and her friend going out the first night. Friends getting dressed together. She got this décolleté dress on. She looks a rare treat. Goes down to the bar, standing having a little gin and lemon. And a wee fellow walks in and says, "Hello, ladies," he said. "Very nice to see you." He said, "Can I buy you a drink?" And the lady said, "Do we know you?" He said, "No," he said. "But I think we go to the same doctors." Oh, God. I had a friend who was in hospital not very long ago, and at one of these a national health hospital, he went out to post a letter one afternoon, came back, the hospital was closed. And they were going to close it early, but they're waiting for the Queen to come and open it. And this day, he's been allowed out in the afternoon. He's got his dressing gown on, and his slippers, and his pyjamas, and his drip, on the wheels. And he's trotting down to the pub like this. He said, I don't want to miss the darts match. He said, the hemorrhoids are playing the paranoids, he said. By the way, if you're surprised by my use of medical terms, it's come from a long line of doctors, mostly specialists in the kneecap area, except mine called Harry Lofty, who was a gynecologist. Anyway, so he's trotting down, and he's standing in the bar waiting for his drink with his drip in his hand. And the barman comes up and said, "Yes, what can I get you?" He said, "I'm going to have a triple brandy, if I may." Thank you, he said. So he serves him the triple brandy. He said, "Strictly speaking, with what I've got, I shouldn't be having this." The barman said, "What have you got?" He said, 20p. Now, no, but I've been, to be truthful, I've been on a bit of a fitness campaign, Weight Watchers. Tom and Emma and I and Anne, we've been on this Weight Watchers. And I've got a treadmill at home, I'm only doing widths at the moment, but because I've been inspired by a local fellow who lives near us. This old boy goes out every morning and he jogs, his tracksuit. And this particular day he goes into the greengrocers, throws himself on the floor of the greengrocers, and he does press-ups. 45 press-ups. Said to the greengrocer, "How old do you think I am?" Hey? How old? Greengrocer says, "What? 71? He said, 87, mate. 87. He trots out the greengrocer, down the road, into the butcher shop. Throws himself on the floor of the butcher shop. Bloody tiring story, this, I can tell you. Said to the butcher, "How old do you think I am?" Butcher said, "What, are you 73? 87, mate," he says. 87. So he trots out. There's an old lady standing at the bus stop with her shopping, waiting for the bus. Throws himself on the pavement in front of the old lady. 45 press-ups. Said to the old lady, "How old do you think I am?" She said, "Hold my shopping." So there he is holding the shopping. The old lady slips her hand down the front of his tracksuit trousers. She said, 87. He said, "How do you know that?" She said, "I was in the butcher's." May I thank you for your very kind attention. For myself, I must admit it's been a bore. And I hope you can claim it's been something much the same. That's all. That's all. And I'll take this opportunity to mention the musicians who deserve to take a call. Won't you join me in a hand for Don and the band? That's all. That's all. And my thanks will be overlooking all the powers that be, for it's clear they've arranged things and did all the booking, and they gave me the chance to appear. I'll admit I had a scrap of apprehension, but a nicer crowd than you I can't recall. So once more before I'm through, thanks to you and you and you and you. Thank you for making a lovely evening for me. I hope you've enjoyed yourself half as much as we have. Thank you. God bless. Good night.